Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something before I say another word. What are you willing to give up today for the life you say you want tomorrow? Sit with that question, because most people never answer it honestly, and that's exactly why most people never get what they say they want. Tonight, I'm not going to give you comfort. I'm going to give you truth. And if you stay with me for the next few minutes, I promise you'll walk away seeing your daily choices in a way you never have before. Because the gap between where you are and where you dream of being isn't filled with luck, it's filled with sacrifice. Let's talk about it. Here's the first thing you must understand. Everything worthwhile has a price, and that price is paid in advance. Success is not a gift that falls into your lap. It's a bill that comes due before the reward arrives, not after. The farmer doesn't get to eat the harvest before he plants the seed. He works in the cold, in the dirt, in the uncertainty of not knowing if the rains will come, and only then, months later, does he stand in a full field. Your life works the same way. The sacrifice always comes first. The success always comes later. Stop waiting for it to feel fair and start paying the price today. Now let's talk about discipline, because discipline is nothing more than the daily practice of doing what you said you would do long after the mood you set it in has left you. Motivation gets you started, but discipline is what walks you across the finish line when nobody's clapping and nobody's watching. Every morning you have a choice. The choice of comfort or the choice of growth, and you cannot have both at the same time. The people who succeed are not the ones with more talent. They are the ones who chose the discomfort of discipline over the ease of excuses, day after day, until that discomfort became their new normal. Let's talk about the value of a single hour, because your hours are the raw material of your entire future. Most people spend their hours chasing entertainment, and then they wonder why 5 years from now, nothing has changed. But some people spend those same hours reading, building, learning, practicing, investing quietly while everyone else is spending loudly. And here's the sober truth. At the end of the year, the one who invested and the one who spent are standing in two completely different places, even though they started with the exact same 24 hours a day. Time doesn't discriminate. What you do with it does. Let's talk about pain, because there are two kinds of pain in this life, the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. Discipline weighs ounces. Regret weighs tons. If you skip the workout, it feels light today. But that lightness compounds into years of feeling heavy in your body and your confidence. If you skip the extra effort at work, it feels light today. But that lightness compounds into a career full of what could have been. Choose your pain wisely, because you will pay one price or the other. There is no version of life where you pay neither. Let's talk about the compounding nature of small sacrifices, because nobody becomes wealthy from one big decision, and nobody becomes wise from one great lesson. It happens in layers. The extra hour of study, the meal you didn't eat out of convenience but prepared out of discipline, the conversation you had instead of avoided, the book you read instead of the show you watched. None of these decisions look powerful in the moment, but stack them day after day, month after month, and you're not the same person anymore. You've built something. Small sacrifices repeated consistently are the architecture of a completely different future. And let's talk about the final truth, the one I want you to carry out of this room tonight. Tomorrow is not entitled to you. Success tomorrow is only ever the shadow cast by the sacrifice you made today. So the question isn't, will I succeed someday? The question is, what am I willing to pay starting right now so that someday actually arrives? Go home tonight and look honestly at your habits, your hours, your excuses, and ask which ones are costing you the future you claim to want. Then make the trade. Sacrifice today, because tomorrow is watching to see if you meant it. Let me ask you something before I expand on this truth, because it deserves more than a passing mention. It deserves to sink all the way into your bones. Everything worthwhile in this life has a price, and here is the part most people never accept. That price is paid in advance, not afterward. We live in a world that has trained us to expect the opposite. We want the reward first and the effort later. We want the body before we've done the work, the business before we've taken the risk, the respect before we've earned it, the freedom before we've built the discipline that makes freedom sustainable. But life does not negotiate on this point. Life does not extend credit. Success does not say, go ahead and enjoy the results and pay me back whenever it's convenient for you. No, success demands payment up front, in full, before it ever hands over what you asked for. Think about the farmer, because there is no better teacher of this principle than a man standing in a field. The farmer does not get to eat the harvest before he plants the seed. Notice the order of events. It is fixed, it is unchangeable, and it is not up for debate. First, he must take something valuable, a seed that could be ground into flour and eaten today, and instead bury it in the earth where he cannot see it, cannot use it, cannot benefit from it for months. That is sacrifice. Then he must work the field in conditions that offer him no immediate reward, under a sun that punishes him, through mornings when his body begs him to stay in bed, across weeks when nothing visible is happening at all. He cannot see the roots forming underground. He only has his faith in the process and the discipline to keep showing up. And even after all of that, he still faces uncertainty. Will the rains come? Will the season be kind? Will the work be enough? There is no guarantee stapled to his effort. And only then, after the waiting, after the labor, after the risk, does he stand in a field of gold, harvesting what he planted long before he ever saw a single sign that it would work. Your life operates on this exact same law, whether you've acknowledged it or not. The sacrifice always comes first. The success always comes later, sometimes much later than you'd like, in a timeline that refuses to match your impatience. And here is where most people fail. They want the order reversed. They want to see the harvest before they're willing to plant. They want proof that the effort will pay off before they're willing to make the effort. But that is not how this works, and no amount of wishing will change the order of operations. The successful among us are not the ones who found a shortcut around this law. They are the ones who made peace with it. They planted seeds in seasons when nobody was watching, when there was no evidence yet that anything would grow, and they kept working the field anyway, because they understood that the price is paid before the reward, not after. So stop waiting for it to feel fair. Stop waiting for the sign, the guarantee, the proof of concept before you commit. The field is in front of you right now. The only question left is whether you are willing to bury the seed today, work in silence for as long as it takes, and trust that the harvest is coming, because it is, but only for the one who paid the price first. Let's go deeper into this one, because discipline is the single most misunderstood word in the entire vocabulary of success. People think discipline is a personality trait, something you either have or you don't, something reserved for a rare breed of naturally driven people. That's a lie, and it's a dangerous one, because it gives everyone else permission to quit before they've even started. Discipline is not a personality trait. Discipline is nothing more than the daily practice of doing what you said you would do, long after the mood you set it in has left you. That's it. That's the whole definition. And once you understand that, you realize discipline isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, one decision at a time, in the exact moments when you least feel like building it. Let's talk about motivation for a second, because motivation gets all the credit and deserves almost none of it. Motivation is the spark. It's the excitement of a new goal, the rush of a New Year's resolution, the fire you feel after watching something that stirs you up. And motivation is wonderful. It gets you off the couch. It gets you to sign up for the gym, to buy the notebook, to declare to your friends what you're going to accomplish. But motivation is emotional. And emotions are unreliable by nature. They rise, and then, without asking your permission, they fall. If you are relying on motivation to carry you all the way to your goal, you will fail. Not because you lack ambition, but because you are depending on a feeling to do the job that only a system can do. Motivation gets you started. Discipline is what walks you across the finish line when nobody's clapping and nobody's watching. And that phrase, when nobody's clapping, is where the real work of a life gets done. Anyone can perform when there's an audience. Anyone can push hard when the cameras are rolling, when the applause is loud, when the whole world is watching to see if they'll succeed. But your life is not mostly lived on a stage. Your life is lived in empty rooms. The early morning when no one sees you choose the workout over the snooze button. The quiet evening when no one sees you choose the book over the noise. The ordinary Tuesday when no one sees you choose the extra effort over the easy exit. Those unseen moments are where discipline is forged. And they are also where most people quietly give up because there's no one there to hold them accountable except themselves. Every single morning you are handed a choice, and it is the same choice every day whether you recognize it or not, the choice of comfort or the choice of growth. And here is the law that governs that choice. You cannot have both at the same time. Comfort and growth live on opposite ends of the same room, and every action you take walks you toward one or the other. There is no neutral ground, no pause button, no day that doesn't count. The people who succeed are not the ones with more talent sitting quietly in their pocket, waiting to be discovered. They are the ones who chose the discomfort of discipline over the ease of excuses again and again on ordinary days that nobody will ever remember, until that discomfort stopped feeling like punishment and simply became their normal way of living. That is the whole secret. Not talent, not luck. Just the willingness to keep choosing growth when comfort was standing right there, begging to be chosen instead. Let's slow down on this one, because time is the one resource every single person in this room has been given in equal measure, and yet it's the resource we treat with the least respect. Your hours are not just minutes ticking by. They are the raw material of your entire future. Everything you will ever become is being built right now out of the hours you're spending today. There's no separate stockpile of someday hours waiting for you. There's only this hour, and the next one, and the one after that. And what you do with them is quietly writing the story of the next 5, 10, 20 years of your life, whether you're paying attention to it or not. Here's what troubles me about how most people treat their time. Most people spend their hours chasing entertainment. Not because they're lazy, not because they're bad people, but because entertainment is easy, it's immediate, and it asks nothing of them. A screen doesn't demand growth. A distraction doesn't require discipline. And so hour after hour gets handed over to whatever requires the least from us. And it feels harmless in the moment. It's just one show, just one scroll, just one afternoon. But then years pass quietly, the way they always do. And those same people look up and wonder why nothing has changed. Why the goals they set 5 years ago are still just goals. Why the life they imagined for themselves hasn't shown up yet. And the honest answer, the answer nobody wants to hear, is that the hours were spent instead of invested. And you cannot build a future out of hours you gave away for free. But then there are others, and I want you to really picture them, who take those same 24 hours, the identical amount of time everyone else was given, and they do something different with them. They spend those hours reading instead of scrolling, building instead of watching, learning a skill instead of numbing out from the day, practicing the craft that will define their next decade instead of consuming someone else's highlight reel. And here's what's remarkable. Nobody's clapping for them while they do it. There's no applause for reading one more chapter instead of watching one more episode. There's no medal for practicing an hour when you could have relaxed. They are investing quietly while everyone else is spending loudly. And in the moment, it looks like nothing is happening at all. But here is the sober truth, and I want you to let this land. At the end of the year, the one who invested and the one who spent are standing in two completely different places, even though they started with the exact same 24 hours a day. Same sunrise, same sunset, same number of hours in every single day of that year. And yet one person has grown, built, learned, changed, and the other person is standing in almost the exact same spot they started in, wondering where the time went. That gap didn't come from luck. It didn't come from opportunity that one person had and the other didn't. It came entirely from what each of them did with the hours nobody was watching. So I want you to ask yourself tonight, honestly, where are your hours actually going? Not where you intend for them to go, not where you assume they go, but where they are actually being spent day after day. Because time doesn't discriminate. It gives itself equally to the disciplined and the distracted alike. What you do with it is the only variable that separates the two. And that variable, unlike the hours themselves, is entirely, completely in your hands. Let's sit with this one for a moment, because I believe it's one of the most important truths anyone will ever tell you about the choices you make every single day. There are two kinds of pain in this life, and you will never escape either one. The only real decision you get to make is which one you're willing to carry. The first is the pain of discipline. The second is the pain of regret. And I need you to understand something crucial about these two pains. They are not equal in weight, even though they can feel that way in the moment you're choosing between them. Discipline weighs ounces. Regret weighs tons. Say that to yourself again, because it's the kind of truth that sounds simple but changes how you live once it actually sinks in. In the moment, discipline feels heavy, heavier even than the alternative. Getting up early feels heavy. Saying no to the thing that would feel good right now feels heavy. Doing the hard work instead of the easy work feels heavy. But that heaviness is an illusion of the moment, because what discipline actually costs you is small. A few ounces of discomfort, a temporary inconvenience, a short season of resistance that passes as soon as you push through it. Regret, on the other hand, feels like nothing at all in the moment it's created. That's what makes it so dangerous. Skipping the workout doesn't hurt. Skipping the extra effort doesn't hurt. Choosing the easy path instead of the disciplined one feels like relief, not pain, and that's exactly the trap. Let me walk you through it. If you skip the workout, it feels light today. Nothing happens. You don't feel weaker tomorrow morning. You don't feel any different at all, and that's precisely the problem, because that lightness doesn't stay light. It compounds. One skipped workout becomes a skipped week, becomes a skipped month, becomes years of feeling heavy in your body, heavy in your energy, heavy in your confidence. Until one day you look in the mirror and don't recognize the weight you're carrying, and you can't even point to the single moment that caused it, because it was never one moment. It was hundreds of small, painless choices that quietly compounded into something enormous. And it's the same story at work, isn't it? If you skip the extra effort, the project you could have gone further on, the skill you could have built, the risk you could have taken, it feels light today. Nobody notices. Nobody calls you out for coasting instead of stretching. There's no immediate consequence, no bill that arrives the next morning. But that lightness compounds too, quietly, in the background of your career, until years later you're standing in a job you've outgrown, watching people you once matched step past you, and your only explanation is a career full of what could have been. That phrase, what could have been, is the sound regret makes when it finally comes to collect what discipline would have cost you for pennies on the dollar years earlier. So here's what I need you to understand and carry with you. Choose your pain wisely, because you will pay one price or the other. There is no version of this life, no matter how careful or lucky you are, where you pay neither. The discomfort is not optional. Only the timing and the size of the bill are optional. Pay small now through discipline, while the cost is still measured in ounces. Or pay enormous later through regret when the cost has compounded into tons you never agreed to carry. The choice is yours, but the bill, one way or another, is always coming. Let's talk about this one carefully, because I think it's the piece most people skip past too quickly, and that's a mistake. Because this is where the real mechanics of a transformed life actually live. Nobody becomes wealthy from one big decision, and nobody becomes wise from one great lesson. We love the story of the single turning point, the one lucky break, the one bold move, the one dramatic moment that changed everything. It makes for a great headline, but it's not how real transformation happens. And if you're waiting for your one big moment, you will wait your entire life and miss the truth standing right in front of you. It happens in layers. Quiet, unglamorous, repetitive layers stacked one on top of another for far longer than anyone claps for. Think about what that actually looks like in a real life. It's the extra hour of study when you could have gone to sleep, when nobody assigned it, when no test tomorrow demanded it. You did it anyway because you understood what it was building toward. It's the meal you didn't eat out of convenience but prepared out of discipline. Standing in your kitchen at the end of a long day when takeout would have been so much easier, choosing the harder path because you know your body is keeping score even when you're not. It's the conversation you had instead of avoided. The hard, honest, uncomfortable conversation that most people dodge for years, the one that could repair a relationship or clarify a direction, and you leaned into it instead of walking away from it. It's the book you read instead of the show you watched. Trading an hour of passive entertainment for an hour of active growth, quietly, with no one around to see which one you chose. Here is what I need you to notice about every single one of those examples. None of them look powerful in the moment. Not one. If you filmed any single instance of any of those choices and showed it to someone, they would shrug. 1 hour of studying doesn't make you educated. One healthy meal doesn't transform your body. One honest conversation doesn't rebuild an entire relationship. One book doesn't make you wise. In isolation, every sacrifice looks almost pointless. Small, forgettable, barely worth mentioning. And that is exactly why so many people abandon these choices before they ever see a return. They're looking for the moment when the sacrifice pays off. And because no single instance of it ever does, they conclude it isn't working and they quit. But watch what happens when you refuse to quit. Stack those choices, the extra hour, the disciplined meal, the honest conversation, the book instead of the screen, day after day, month after month, without demanding proof at every step that it's working. Do this long enough and something happens that no single decision could ever produce on its own. You are not the same person anymore. Not metaphorically, actually. Your knowledge is different. Your body is different. Your relationships are different. Your instincts, your confidence, your capability. All of it has quietly reorganized itself around the thousands of small sacrifices you made when nothing seemed to be happening. You've built something, brick by invisible brick, while everyone waiting for the one big moment is still standing exactly where they started. This is the part I need you to carry out of here. Small sacrifices, repeated consistently, are the architecture of a completely different future. Not the big leap, not the lucky break. The architecture, the actual load-bearing structure of the life you're building, is made of the small, boring, repeated choices nobody ever sees. Stop looking for the one decision that will change everything. Start stacking the small ones. That's where the real transformation has been hiding all along. Let's bring this all the way home, because everything I've said tonight funnels into this one final truth, and I need you to hear it not as a closing thought, but as the thing you actually walk out of this room carrying with you. Tomorrow is not entitled to you. Say that quietly to yourself. Tomorrow is not a guarantee stapled to your existence. It is not something you have earned simply by surviving today. And yet most people live as though it's owed to them, as though there will always be another day, another chance, another window to finally start paying the price they've been putting off. That assumption is the single greatest thief of human potential, because it turns someday into a permanent address instead of a temporary excuse. Success tomorrow is only ever the shadow cast by the sacrifice you made today. Think about what a shadow actually is. It doesn't exist on its own. A shadow has no independent life. It is entirely dependent on the object that creates it. There is no shadow without the thing that casts it, and there is no success without the sacrifice that produces it. You cannot go looking for the shadow directly. You cannot chase the result and skip the cause. If you want to see success fall across your future, you have to put the object, the discipline, the effort, the sacrifice in the light today. That's the only way the shadow ever appears. So the question isn't, will I succeed someday? I want you to notice how comfortable that question is, how safely it lets you off the hook, how easily it lets you defer the real work into some vague, distant, unaccountable future. Will I succeed someday is a question you can ask forever without ever answering it, because someday never actually arrives on a calendar. It only arrives through the accumulation of todays that you are willing to pay for. The real question, the one that actually demands something from you, is this. What am I willing to pay, starting right now, so that someday actually arrives? Notice the shift, from wondering to willing, from someday to right now. That shift is the entire difference between a person who dreams and a person who builds. So go home tonight, and I mean tonight, not next week when it's more convenient, and look honestly at your habits, your hours, your excuses. Really look. Look at the habits that are quietly costing you the version of yourself you claim to want to become. Look at the hours that are slipping away into things that will mean nothing to you 5 years from now. Look at the excuses you've gotten so comfortable repeating that you've stopped even hearing them as excuses. They've started sounding like reasons. Ask yourself, without flinching, which of these is costing you the future you say you want? Be specific, name them. And then, this is the part that matters more than anything else I've said tonight, make the trade. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when the timing improves, now. Trade the comfort for the discipline. Trade the excuse for the effort. Trade the easy today for the future you keep saying you want but haven't yet been willing to pay for. Sacrifice today, because tomorrow is watching to see if you meant it. So let me leave you with this, because everything I've shared with you tonight was never meant to just be heard. It was meant to be lived, starting the moment you walk out of this room. We talked about the farmer and how the harvest only ever comes to the one willing to bury the seed first, in silence. With no proof, it will grow. We talked about discipline and how it is not a gift some people are born with, but a daily choice made in empty rooms where nobody is clapping. We talked about your hours, the quiet currency of your entire future, and how two people can be given the exact same 24 hours and end up standing in completely different lives simply because of what they did with them. We talked about the two pains, discipline and regret, and how the one that feels heavier today is always lighter than the one waiting for you tomorrow. We talked about the small, invisible sacrifices that stack silently until one day you look up and realize you have built an entirely different person. And we talked about tomorrow itself and how it is never owed to you. It is only ever earned, one paid for today at a time. Here is what all 6 of those truths are really telling you. Underneath everything, you already have everything you need to change your life. Not someday, not when conditions improve, not when you feel more motivated or more ready or more deserving. Right now, tonight, the seed is in your hand. The choice between comfort and growth is standing in front of you the moment you wake up tomorrow morning. The hours are already ticking, whether you spend them or invest them. The pain is coming either way. The only thing left for you to decide is which kind you're willing to carry. So decide. Do not let this be a night you remember fondly and then quietly return to the same habits, the same excuses, the same comfortable distance from the life you say you want. Let this be the night the trade actually happened, where you stopped asking whether you'll succeed someday and started asking what you're willing to pay today. Because I promise you, the sacrifice will not announce itself as heroic. It will look small. It will look unglamorous. It will look like waking up 10 minutes earlier, saying no to something easy, choosing effort when no one's watching. But that is exactly what every single transformed life has been built from. Not one dramatic leap, but 1,000 quiet trades made by someone who finally decided they were done waiting. So walk out of here and pay the price. Plant the seed even though you cannot see the harvest yet. Choose the ounces of discipline over the tons of regret. Stack the small sacrifices one on top of another until they become a life you no longer recognize from where you're standing tonight. And when tomorrow comes, and it will come for those who earn it, let it find you already becoming the person your sacrifice today was building. Sacrifice today. Succeed tomorrow. The price is set. The choice is yours. Go pay it.